I'll just go live. Send me your video.
No. Well,
Do. Oh, so the listener already pointed out that they might have a new prime minister before our stream.
They could vote that quickly?
Because you know how prime ministers work, right? It's not like an election in the U.S.
The parliament picks someone from the leading coalition.
Yep. The best thing, if it was a regular show, my news would be that the lettuce outlasted her.
Yeah, but it's like, I didn't think it's like, even if you have, it's been several hours, right? But it's like in a day, you're going to get your whole coalition together and pick somebody? That seems like...
I mean, the Tories are not smart or capable people, so...
I mean, let's pretend, right, hypothetically, that, the Democrats in Congress had, an ultra majority, right? And we were a parliament instead, so they just picked the president from amongst themselves.
All right?
How long do you think it would fucking take them to pick somebody?
They would just pick Nancy Pelosi.
You think so?
It would just be the Speaker of the House. I'm confident.
Oh.
Because they wouldn't be able to agree on anyone else.
I don't know if they agree on her either.
I mean, they did agree on her. She absolutely wins the election. And remember, she's right in line to be president if anything happens.
Yeah, third.
Yeah,
third place.
right there.
But I'm just saying,
All right. Well, we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to hit record.
I'm not saying that wouldn't be the result, right? That's a very likely result. I'm just saying I don't think it would be done in this less than how many hours is it?
So historically, there's always rumblings, like when the Republicans had the House, of like, oh, there'll be a challenge and like someone surprising could win because they're like nobody agrees. But every time it's happened, they just vote and the obvious choice always wins by a supermajority, and that's the end of it. Like every single time.
But you still, even just to get to even if the vote might go that way, the amount of time it would take to, deliberate and discuss before you actually sat down and said, okay, voting time, it would be at least a few days.
I don't think they'd even deliberate. They just do that offline. But our system's so different that it's hard to compare.
Just saying, it takes time.
I mean, nothing's going to matter until labor takes power back over there anyway.
Yeah, well,
the listeners suddenly the listeners all into this.
Not to say that, the Tories are any good, because they're still right-wing garbage people.
They're still left of, like, even our centrist Democrats.
Exactly, right? I mean, they're not on some social issues, perhaps, right? But it's like,
Oh, no, for all the Albionics who are in the chat right now, yeah, our quote-unquote left party is basically your Tory party. We don't have a real left party.
It's like,
and our right party is just Nazis.
Yeah. It's like they got their NIH over there, right? And it's like the Tories are trying to make it shitty, but they're not trying to bring about private insurance.
Eventually they are. That's definitely the end game.
You think it could be, but
But even their right party is going more and more right.
Yeah.
That's happening everywhere in the world right now.
The whole world.
Germany less so, but they've been through that before.
Anyway.
All right. So we're going. I hit record, and Audition is working.
Mm-hmm.
I assume you have hit record.
Oh. I recorded my new Audition 2023 update. That's barely an update. It still ruins all your settings when you update to it.
It did not ruin my settings, and I don't know what's different.
My audio hardware setting. Every other setting is fine.
No. Yeah, I guess I have a
reset it.
I have a very large professional PreSonus ASIO device.
I got my nice little device. I think you underestimate the quality of this device.
Oh yeah, but I do see the noise it picks up, and it does pick up more noise than my device. But
I mean,
none of that. I mean, that's all removed before we put the show up anyway. And
it is not an amount of noise that is giving anyone any trouble.
No one would hear it unless I did a lot of normalizing.
If we were making a musician, like an album for an S tier musical act, it might be an issue.
I mean, GeekNights still has higher audio quality than a lot of like pro podcasts I've listened to. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of those just have people calling in or zooming in, and then there's some central recording person. Or
All right, put a little marker in. Let's do this. It's Thursday, October 20th, 2022. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is the GeekNights Book Club. Tonight we are talking about the Binti trilogy by Nnedi Okorafor. Put another little marker there. Just get right into it, I think.
You don't want to do any opening bit even?
Yeah, we can do an opening bit.
All right.
You said you had something, so go for it. Go nuts. I got nothing. Do I have anything? Did anything happen to me?
I got so much going on right now. I got I can rely on my calendar to actually use opening bits that happened prior to a previous show.
Whoa. All the weird stuff I got going on is work stuff that I'm absolutely not talking about on Geek Nights.
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right, go for it.
So, there was a news recently that the Phantom of the Opera was going to close.
Oh, yeah.
Broadway, which has been running, right? I mean, I think the show is as old as 1986, but it's in New York since like 89, maybe.
I mean,
right?
I saw it at the Pantages twice.
Detroit.
Yeah, actually, no, that's in Canada.
Oh, in Canada.
We would often, for a lot of reasons, we would head over to Canada to see shows instead of seeing them in Detroit.
I mean, it's the same. Usually when there's a traveling show, it's the same. This one cast goes around the country, right? So wherever you see it, if you're not seeing it in a place where there's a centralized theater like Broadway, West End, etc., right, a foreign country, then you're seeing the same show is going to be in Seattle and Chicago, right?
Yep.
They just go around. So anyway, it was closing. Now I had seen it on Broadway in 1990X, right?
I think I also saw it in Detroit because I saw it 3 times. In 2 different theaters. I just
But
can't
you never
remember.
saw it in New York.
Never saw it in New York.
Well, it's very different if you see it in New York.
I mean, sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Because,
this is specific. No, this is definitely different because not having seen it in New York, right? A lot of the show is built into the theater.
Oh, you mean like the chandelier that's over the audience that comes crashing down almost into the audience that happened?
I mean, that is one major component, but there are others besides.
Because like Les Mis, even the Detroit show in the old days had the rotating stage.
Rotating floor is very important for that.
Which the new Les Mis apparently does not have, so I have no desire to see it.
No. But anyway, Phantom has a whole bunch of other shit. It's got moving staircases in the back. It's got a hole in the floor the guy jumps into. It's got the descent, I guess.
I remember all those things happening in the shows I saw. And weirdly, the one in Canada was the same as the one in Detroit as far as I can remember.
Anyway, so it was closing, right? And Amanda never saw it, ever.
Huh?
And I'm like, well, why the fuck? We can just walk over there. It's right there. It's not, there'll be a bunch of tourists, but whatever. So I went over and saw it, and I was like, I saw this in the 90s, and it was, terrific. But it's like, who's the cast now? Just some, life Broadway employee, cast people, right? Who are obviously going to be talented at singing and dancing, but it's not like ultra famous people or anything, And I'm like, they do this show. They've performed the show in that theater tens of thousands of times. Right? And it's like, goddamn, that's hard work to do all that. What a pain in the ass.
Like, even imagine us. Like it takes some effort to do an hour of being animated on a stage, doing a panel where we mostly ad-lib everything. Imagine doing that, like, every day.
Almost every day. Like, they take one day off a week, but some days they do it twice. It's like, Jesus Christ, what a pain in the ass it is to do that fucking show that much, right? For that many years without stopping, right? It's like, holy shit. And it's like, so how much effort are they really going to put into any one performance, right? Are they giving it 100% every time? It's like, no way, not a chance, right? So I'm thinking like, well, I'm just going to bring someone who's never seen it while there's still a chance to do so. The London show went post-pandemic when it came back in a reduced fashion, right? The New York one is the only one I know of on Earth that is still doing the complete original production. Though there are rumors that after it closes, it may eventually come back in a reduced fashion.
Oh, definitely. Just like Les Mis did. Like Les Mis is the pattern now.
I mean, it's going to come back. But this thing has been going since 1980-something, right? It's been going longer than a lot of people have been alive, right? But I haven't seen the thing in, since last millennia.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going in like with, the expectation is that, like, yeah, the show is good, the music will be great, right? The instrumental music. But I don't know how well these people sing. I assume they'll sing well.
I'm imagining this leads to it blowing you away because it was full effort. Like,
it's not full effort, but even if it's not full effort, that show still fucking kicks ass.
Oh yeah,
that show is so good. Right? There's a reason it was there for 30-something years.
Yup.
Right? Even, talented people giving it 80%, it's like, fuck yeah, Phantom of the Opera is awesome. If you have a chance, it's not going to be hard to get tickets, even though it was more crowded in there than I expected. Obviously, lots of tourists and students and that kind of group, old people. But if you have the opportunity or can make the opportunity, it's going to close like in February. And if you've never seen it, get your ass down there. It'll go away and that'll be it, right? You'll never have a chance. I also want to say, revisiting the story of Phantom of the Opera, right? Not having thought about it much in a long time, right? Adult Scott now sees the story somewhat differently.
I can see that.
My current interpretation is that basically the Phantom is like this incel dude.
Oh, absolutely.
Just a cranky incel guy, right? And he happens to be talented at many things, right? Like, music and science and whatnot, right? He's a talented, intelligent person. But he's an incel with low self-esteem because of his deformity.
Yep. But also, it's definitely, I always interpreted him as a character who ends up blaming the problems he causes himself on that to a degree.
Right. The end of the moral of the show, spoilers, the moral of the story.
Phantom doesn't win.
Right? Right, well, obviously, is that he's like, no one will love me because I'm ugly, and then she's just basically like, no, I don't like you because you're fucking evil, murdering people.
Yeah.
That's why.
If you had just helped me sing better,
your soul is dark, not your face, right? And that's the moral, right? And I'm like, in the concept of incels not being they were a thing, but the word, that wasn't in the cultural consciousness, but now that it is. It's like, oh, that's another reason this show has held up for so many years, because it's still fucking true. Right?
It gave voice to that specific archetype of problem person.
Yeah. So the other thing about the show, I think that really makes it last a long time, is that it's cool, right? It's other Broadway shows, even the long-lasting ones, have a lot less coolness.
Yeah, you got to have big set pieces, like that scene in the end with the people climbing down the big
the very end.
The cage thing, all those just spectacle pieces.
Right, but it's like, Les Mis is kind of cool. Cats is kind of not that cool, right? It's like a lot of the aesthetic of a lot of shows doesn't have sort of that badass darkness to them, right? Titanic's not really cool, right? The Disney ones, they're Disney ones.
You know what actually had that pretty well was the Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, that was an okay one, right? In terms of coolness.
Yeah, the problem is its story was they were really stretching what little there is to that story to make a musical that long.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Phantom isn't that long, right? They have the story, this original book, right?
Yep.
They don't stretch it. They just this is what we got to work with, and there it is, right? And after the intermission, there's not much left, right? It's like you get the intermission, and then the second part is not that long, right?
Yeah.
The end. All right. So yeah, if you can see it, go see it. It holds up perfectly well. No Ozymandias here, right?
Yeah.
It's still a full statue with no ruins.
Yep. And I think there are...
And you look and you're like, yeah, look at that.
Especially because there are enough people on Earth who can sing that one note. All right. So, Binti, the book club book. I picked Binti, but we're going to talk about the entire Binti series because it is a trilogy and it is about as long...
Tiny books.
Yep. It is about as long as a short-ish novel as a whole, and I've already forgotten exactly where the first book ends and the second book ends because it's so short and so much happens.
Yeah, the three books are so short individually. I'd say an hour each, right? It's like 3 chapters of the Tale of Genji, basically.
Yeah.
Right? And combined, it's still a short book, right? Even if you put them all together. But despite the short length and word count, page count, however you want to measure it, and the speed at which you can read the whole thing, the amount of stuff that happens, the amount of characters, the amount of meaning, the amount of everything that is in there is just as much stuff as you would get in, some full ass 1,000-page. And I didn't feel like
Oh no, because it is dense with content and allegory and meaning,
right.
But every sentence advances something that you're interested in. There's not a wasted word in this book.
Right. It's like dense without being heavy, right? Or difficult to get through. Like
it's not dense like the Silmarillion.
Right. It's not dense like you're walking through a bog. It's dense like there is a cheesecake which is rich in flavor, but it is light and fluffy, and you eat the whole thing really quickly. You don't feel full, but it was still tasted, of richness. Right?
Yeah.
It's still a cheesecake. Right?
So I gotta say, like, irrespective of the GeekNights Book Club, if you have not read the Binti trilogy yet, we're gonna spoil everything in it. So I had
we don't remember where one ended and one began. So if you've only read like one book or two books, then it's like I can't promise I'm talking about something from only book one or something like that.
Though at the same time, it would be very hard as a human to have read just that first book and not immediately read the first page of the next book.
I'm glad that we only started this after all three books were available so that I was able to immediately go and get 2 and then 3.
Yep. So we're going to spoil everything. And also, I will just say that these are fantastic books, and I urge everyone listening to this, if you have not read it, just go read it.
If you're a nerd, if you're listening to this, you're going to like it, right?
Yep. You're going to have a lot of thoughts about it. You're going to have a lot to say about it. You'll have a lot of opinions.
If you have not yet acquired the books and are going to do so in a legal fashion, I guess the cheapest would be a used bookstore. But if you're using some other method like buying ebooks or first, brand new books, look for some sort of box set or something, or a 3-in-1. You'll probably save some money.
Yep.
Right? If you buy 1, then 2, then 3, you might end up losing a couple dollars.
So 100% recommendation. Like, this is a top tier book, and yes, 100% recommendation, but I have almost nothing negative to say about the books. Like, can I point to anything that's bad about them? Not really. Yeah.
But they're not like fucking masterpieces.
Well, no, I'm not. So I'm not saying this is in the top 10 like books of all time written by humans.
It's weird. It's like, can you name any flaws? No. Well, then shouldn't it be an S tier all time great masterpiece like fucking Shakespeare or something? No. It's right.
But in terms of the GeekNights Book Club, it is in the S tier of just read it. Don't even worry. Just read it no matter what, no matter who you are. There's no one who should not read this book.
Yeah. So an illiterate person should learn to read this book.
Exactly. But also the reason, not just for spoilers, but it's the GeekNights Book Club. It's a book club. The whole point of a book club is that you talk about the book with all the people who've read the book. So to remind all of you, because, the Genji really set us back on book clubs for a while, we're going to talk about this book like you have also read it. We're not going to explain the plot. We're assuming you have read the same words that we have read, and now we are reacting to and interpreting those words. So it's not just, we're going to spoil everything, which the book has some radical twists that often happen like mid-sentence along the way. Mm-hmm. This book is like, all right, I see where this is going. Then you read a sentence and you're like, wait, what? You almost back up and read the sentence again because now everything's changed.
Mm.
And that happens at least 3 or 4 times over the course of. There are revelations that are, I guess, the scope of it grows with every chapter in ways that you won't expect. So
let's talk about it, I guess, in a not spoilery way for a brief time.
Yeah.
Right, as we usually do. So, what the hell is Binti about? Well, it's this person who is of college age, I guess.
Yep.
Right? I guess late teens.
Yep, like I think she's 16 or 17, living in Africa somewhere, and it's not exactly clear
a
when.
Planet that is isn't explicitly Earth, right? It's some planet, right?
Yeah.
In
Well, yeah, that is sort of
multi-planet galactic society of some kind.
Yep. You do get more specific details later in the book, but especially when you get some flashbacks. But when it's presented, you're just presented with this person in this culture in a time that is definitely the future compared to the kind of time we live in now.
Yeah, it's a sci-fi, future-y, space travel kind of place.
Yeah,
right?
like they have cell phones and internet, but they're obviously more advanced and special than what we have today.
Right. And the culture that this person is a part of, right, is a special and important culture that basically makes cell phones, right?
Yep.
It's like they're the cell phone provider and, the smartphone maker. No one else can make, no other cultures or societies can make smartphones. Therefore, because of their ability to be the ones who make those, their culture endures and sustains despite being kind of a minority.
Yep.
And the society is largely dominated by another culture.
The Koosh.
That are sort of colonizers, kind of a little bit, right?
There is so it at
they
first
largely run the show in this area, though not in the galaxy, but on the planet.
Yep, it's very much
Nearby.
apparent that the Himba that the main character comes from are a traditional culture that is to a significant degree oppressed by and exploited by this larger culture that is sort of in the cities surrounding them.
Yeah, and both of the cultures are sort of conservative in their own different ways and advanced more or less in different ways, right? With good aspects and bad aspects, right? They're just different, people with, different ideals, different ways, different traditions, different everything.
Yep, not necessarily good or bad.
Each other and somewhat depend on each other.
Just different and complex.
Yes, but the Himba are very much outnumbered in their geographic area. Right, by a lot. They're not the government.
Yep. So the main character, Binti, basically gets accepted to the space college, and the space college, Oomza University, is described as
basically they were 11.
Yep, but
literally,
yeah, like imagine there are countless alien species and like the most ridiculous post-Star Trek universe you can imagine. And the smartest beings in the entire galaxy go to this one university. It's the most exclusive place there is. And Binti is not just like humans definitely attend this university, though they're the minority. There are not many humans there. Not
many anything there. It's a lot. It's a few members of every different, sentient alien species.
Yep. But there has never been a member of her culture there ever.
Right. Well, it's sort of, against her culture, right? It's like, she applied to there in secret.
Yep. Family vaguely disapproving, and she sneaks off in the night and gets on a spaceship and goes to the university with a full ride, basically.
Yep. And then adventure happens.
And adventure happens suddenly, like a couple,
immediately.
Yep.
There's not a lot of pages. It happens on the next. She takes off, and then adventure happens immediately.
Yep. So,
terrifying adventure.
Seriously, from this point forward, major spoilers. So, I literally had to
It's hard to talk about the plot. It's in such a short set of books. It's hard to talk about the plot beyond page 2 and not spoil everything.
Yep. Though what I would say is that what's interesting about how the scope of the book expands suddenly, every chapter or two, there's something you learn that greatly expands the scope of what is going on and what is at play. Especially
at the very, very end.
Oh, yeah.
The end of the third book, it's after the major climax, it's the sort of epilogue denouement at the finale is just vastly expands the scope of what, and makes everything that happened previous look small.
But I guess
just a two or three pages.
These explosions of scope are definitely direct allegory to the themes of the book and also the literal reality of what is happening to the characters. Because as Binti goes to college and learns about the world, you also have this sort of backfilling of everything has a more complex deal than it appeared at first. Literally everything. Every culture, every person, every piece of technology, everything you were presented with, You learn a new piece of
There's a
information.
terrible secret. Yeah, there isn't like this one terrible secret of space like a lot of sci-fis have that you're trying to resolve and answer. It's like every different component of every proper noun has its own terrible secret of space to figure the true motives, the true reasons, the true history of each thing. So you're constantly being exposed to new things, and it's not like this is one end goal, right?
Yep.
And I think that's part of what contributes to the richness, right? Is that there's just so much happening all over, right?
So, spoilers, the moment when the Medusae attacked the ship and murdered everyone, I literally had to back up and read that paragraph again because there was a moment of, wait, what? Just what? What happened?
I also had to clarify as like, is that really literally what just happened? Yes, it is.
Because it was instant. That was the first like tone shift. Like, okay.
The short number of pages in which such a monumentous, dramatic, huge thing happened.
Especially because it was following what I would expect is a semi-typical plot of, all right, she's on the spaceship going to the university.
She meets a boy on the spaceship.
He's kind of cute. She's exploring these new cultures and these new ideas.
Spaceship is sentient and awesome. It's a giant space shrimp. It's biological in some way. It's not just a machine.
Yep. So I felt like I had a sense of
or whatever.
Yep. But like I had a sense of where this was going, and then the Medusa killed literally everyone on the ship instantly, and then
suddenly they're on this ship going to space college with everybody, and then boom, the ship is attacked and everyone dies except her immediately in like a paragraph.
And what was interesting, like form is function, kind of like how when you watch the Skycrawlers movie, you start to fall asleep because it's so boring, but that sort of helps you appreciate the moral of that movie. Now you have no idea where this is going to go. Like from that point, I could not tell where, like, this could go in a number of directions, just as Binti is locked in her room on the ship, and the Medusa are, like, outside banging around, and, like, they keep coming back, and they're like, are you still in there and alive?
It's like, at that point, I was like, what can even happen? It's like, they're not, I'm trying to think of like what the outs are.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, her family doesn't even fucking know.
Yeah.
Right? Literally everyone's dead. She's trapped in this room. She doesn't fucking know anything. The Medusa are just evil and are gonna, murder her. They murdered literally everybody.
Except there was the ship's pilot was okay too.
Oh, right. It's like, but you didn't know that.
Nope, you don't know that till later. And they're trying to kill her, but
like the only out I'm imagining is like, okay, I'm guessing the sentient spaceship, which is a living being, will do something about this, right? It's like,
I like how we don't find out what the ship was thinking about all of this until like the last 2 chapters of the entire trilogy.
Yeah, but it's like, I'm like, well, I was thinking that, like, well, that's the out, the ship, but the ship hasn't done anything yet. It didn't stop this from happening.
And like,
so what the hell is it going to do now? Just arrive at, is it going to, refuse and fly to Space University no matter what the bad people want? And then
and then it escalates so quickly that before you know it, like you're at the university. She is now half Medusa. She is standing before like this university council of aliens. And now you realize, oh, there are a lot of extremely inhuman aliens. There's like 5 of them that are even similar to the Medusa who at this point had been described as extremely alien and mysterious. And now there's
this is right up my alley. I'm all about all kinds of messed up different aliens.
Oh yeah,
that are radically different from just some humanoid green guy, right? It's very Star Control style, where it's like, this alien is just a gaseous form, and this one you can't even see, and this one is made of refracted light.
And you go from the Medusa,
classic plio tentacles, right?
But like the Medusa are unknown and mysterious, and they're at war with the Kush for reasons we don't understand. And like no one's ever talked to them. And then we get to the university, and like 3 of the professors speak the Medusa language, and they're like, it's Medusa. Okay. What's up? Hey guys.
There are some Medusa people who are students there.
Yep. Not from that particular like species, but like very similar, related, not really explored. And I still wasn't at that point now. I was not sure if the university was good or bad.
Oh yeah, I didn't know at all.
Like at that point, like when the professors are debating what to do, knowing now that they knew everything, I figured that they stole that stinger on purpose. I figured a lot could be going on. Binti's just in the middle of it.
Like, is there must be a situation here where there is no galactic governing body, or it's just all these separate, each race of alien species or planet or whatever. There must be local governments everywhere, and the university is just like its own entity that governs itself and nothing else, right? And that's why some, professors, I guess, are meeting and, acting as a governing body, for a population of people that live there, right? Because I guess there is never anywhere in all 3 books any mention of like some sort of UN or anything like that. Right?
Yep.
It's not, because if there was, you would say, well, where the fuck is it? It would be involved, but it isn't.
But what I do really appreciate is that I'm glad the university ended up just being pretty much a benign force of knowledge, peace, and understanding. Like, it was good, and it tried hard as an entity. It was not a bad guy, and even in the beginning, they meet and they're like, oh, yeah, that stinger was fucking stolen, and that's shitty, and we're giving it back, and we are sorry, and oh my God, like, immediately. And then, by the way, you want a full ride?
Yeah, that's an example of like, sort of the, of like just how there isn't a single terrible secret of a space, right? There's like these many, mini resolved plots.
Because I suspected there was still something sinister about the university at several points along the way. Like when Oku, the jellyfish guy, that's her friend, is learning weapons, and you thought he was going to kill the professor, but that was actually just his final exam, and it was fine. Like, there are a bunch of points along the way.
I mean, I was questioning the university until that we actually got there, and then once I got there, it sort of felt like, I guess maybe because I've seen They Were 11 more than once, it sort of felt like that same situation where, there's the university presents itself as sinister up front, and you hop over that barrier, and it's like, there's the truth on the other side. Okay.
Yep. I guess there was one moment where I wondered about the university. It was the last time I wondered, and it was when she was studying the Edan, like the magic rock, with that one professor, and then she left to go home, and she just thought to herself, like, there was one of those moments that this book does a few times, and other great books have done it, where you have one throwaway line at the end of a chapter where the main character was like, I wish I had paid more attention to what had just happened, because it explained what happened later. And it just kind of left you with that. And that was right after the professor had basically said, all right, go home with the jellyfish guy to the planet with all the diplomacy stuff. And I wonder if the university had some ulterior motive, but then clearly not. And that was the end of that thread of suspecting the university of malfeasance.
Yep. All right. So, I guess I don't. But yeah, it's like the stinger plot. It's like, why did the aliens attack this ship and murder everyone? Well, because, their like leader's, stinger, like a part of his body, right, was like chopped off and stolen, right, like an artifact, and absconded with to the university, like the university was the British Museum or some shit.
Yep.
Right. And they were like, hey, give that shit back. Right. And the university just sort of, and it's like, you think, well, that's, you're presented with that sort of MacGuffin motive thing, right, early on. And you got to imagine that, right, when you're presented with that kind of thing, that's going to be the climax, right, resolving, getting that when they finally get the stinger. But it's like, no, they get that quickly.
Yeah, like instantly, they give it right back to him, like, we're sorry, here you go.
Right. It's like, so there's like, you're presented with a thing and it's resolved, but there's more book to go in a short book, That's the only thing I think that carries on for a long time is the magical device that she has.
That is true.
Right. But even that one, where it's like, the truth of it doesn't come out until much later. She's constantly like reminded of it, focused on it, working on it, studying it, has a professor helping work on it. Right.
Yep.
It's like they're not like ignoring it like, a lot of magical, girls in anime.
Yeah, I guess no character in this book ignores something that a reasonable person would not ignore.
Right. It's like, the girl has the magic item. And then at the final episode, we learn what the magic item is. It was a key to a door, or it was a this, or it was a that, right? And the whole in-between time, it's mostly ignored, right? It's like, not at all. It's like, I have a magic item. I will spend all the spare time figuring it the fuck out from immediately.
Yep.
And it's constantly focused on nonstop. And even though the final truth of it doesn't come out till later, sub-truths are constantly revealed, right? It progresses and is constantly bearing fruit.
And I like the radical expansion of the universe we're interacting with, because so suddenly we learn about the space university and like the ridiculousness of the wider world that these cultures play a part in. And then we learn as we go on, like we learn, the desert people, they got space internet. They're way more advanced than fucking anyone. And even the Himba were prejudiced against them as being savages because they just didn't know.
Even though they made smartphones for them.
Yep. And then even at the very end, like, the Himba, actually, they got a secret society and all sorts of, they got stuff going on too. Literally everybody's got something going on.
It's almost like, when the author was doing like some world building exercise where like they just started with a character and were like almost playing like some solo RPG where like, okay, I'm allowed to write one paragraph, then I have to flip over a card to add something new to the mix. Doing that.
But it played well into the sort of overall themes of the story, because if you look at this as a story of cultures interacting, you have a person who lives in a culture that is traditional and oppressed by the people around it culturally, yet has both redeeming qualities and negative qualities. Like, their culture is pretty sexist and was holding people like Binti back. But also, their culture was way more reasonable about a lot of things than like the Kush, and they were oppressed by the Kush, but they also were in turn effectively oppressors, at least they thought they were, of the desert people who they disrespected.
Yeah, I mean, just about every one of the different cultures presented, it's like there's not some clear good guy, bad guy deal, right? Of like colonizer, colonized, right?
Yep.
Like you would, it's like every single culture and different group of species or whatever they are, right, has positive and negative aspects. Even right, these ridiculous the Medusae who just come out as like genocidal murderers. Immediately.
Really, what's funny, what they're a lot like Klingons in Star Trek, like very Klingon.
Pretty even I know that's true. It's like you got to think that they're bad, right? All you've seen of them is they came and just murdered a bunch of innocent people, right? Students. It's like, that's as bad as it gets.
But like at the very end, when Binti is trying to make peace between them, and she's like, look, fuckers, what did you think they were going to do when you attacked their leader and cut off a part of his body?
Right. It's like they're still bad because, getting vengeance in that way isn't good. Right? But it's like they're not just, genocidal maniac species or whatever, just going around, killing everyone. It's like they just become evil when there's a reason.
Well, they had their own code of honor.
Stole from them. That's also bad.
But thus we've got the sort of intertwined allegory of Binti is literally becoming more than human and more than she's becoming culturally more than just Himba, even though that is where she came from. She is also becoming physically more than just human. Through multiple stages along the way. She's half Medusa, half spaceship, half human. With the alien internet in her brain. Like,
yeah, well, I think that's what allows her, to sort of be the main character. And, she brings all the, her story, what she does brings all these different groups together, right? But also, incorporates them into herself, right? So it's sort of,
not just incorporates into herself, but also by default incorporates part of herself into them. No cultures interact without both of them changing. No people interact without both of them changing. No things interact without both of them changing.
Right. Well, I mean, you can't really be, she's like a translator / diplomat, right? Or ends up being forced into that role, even though that's not what she wanted, right? And it's like, it's hard to be, if she was still just herself, right, and hadn't, become part Medusa, part spaceship, part whatever, then it sure makes it a lot harder to bring those groups together because you'll always be seen as just representing the interests of, who you are, right? But by actually literally becoming, right, the other, kind of person, right, at the same time, it's like she could garner the trust of everyone, right?
Yep. It was a very poignant moment when...
Not really possible even in the real world.
It was a very poignant moment when she did convince, the warring leaders to make peace, have a truce, and it all fell apart anyway. But the fact that she saw that the Medusa chief was surprised and sad, and the Kush king was also surprised and sad that it fell apart.
Neither of them it wasn't their fault. It was that sub guy.
Yeah.
The general dude or whatever his name was.
Yeah, well, it was that the peace was not that easy to achieve between their two cultures.
Yeah, it's like, even if you get, like, I mean, you can see even in the history of the real world, there have been times when you've had world leaders from countries that are really mad at each other, right? Sign a treaty, shake hands, do a photo op, right? But that doesn't mean that all of the people of those countries are now happy with each other and chill, right? Or that, there might be a change of government, or some other people, a government isn't just one person, even if it's a dictator, a monarch or something, right? Some general goes off, or someone else. It happens.
But but all this leads to, I would say, the top line primary theme that stands out to me in this entire work, this trilogy, is that having a broader perspective is never bad. Learning more is never bad, even if you don't like what you learn, because the only reason Binti is able to do the things she does is because she learns and embraces and evolves as she interacts with other cultures and sees a broader and broader universe. And she doesn't forget where she came from. She doesn't reject the culture she came from wholly, but she also does not stick strictly to the conservative elements of her culture that are like the sexism that aren't necessarily ideal. She grows to become something more that incorporates both of them.
Yeah, I mean, to bring up Broadway again, I think the primary, theme message is Fiddler on the Roof. Right? It's like, you got the tradition, right? And then you got the kids, and do the kids, give up on where they came from, right? It's like, no, but, their horizon broadens outside this little village.
Yep.
And also terrible things come and happen to the people living there, right? That forces them out of their little shell.
But
right?
Binti was right to expand out of her shell. She was right to leave and see the world, and she came back better for it, and her people were better for it, because that war was going to happen anyway. That is very much apparent. The Kush...
Yeah, if she was not on that ship, right, what would have happened instead, right?
Yep.
Well, everyone on it still would have died, right?
Oomza University would have been attacked by the Medusa.
Exactly, right? So,
But the part that I guess surprised me the most was, as soon as we meet the desert people, my first thinking was, all right, what's their deal? Because by that point, there've been enough, everybody's got a deal, that when she actually meets the desert people, I'm just thinking, all right, sums up, what's their deal?
The desert people, I think, when they first came into the picture, I was like, well, this is a little bit tropey, right? To have like the mysterious people in the sands, Fremenish kind of. I imagine them to be Fremenish kind of, right?
I did at first, and I love how they're like, the fuck's wrong with you? We're just on Twitter. Like, what's up?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have Twitter too. Your dad just didn't hook you up to it.
Right, exactly. But they're these mysterious people it felt like a trope, right? That was just coming in to fill out the last book there, right? But then it's like, no, actually, your dad is one of those people. It's like, oh, what? Oh, like, he was hiding it the whole time.
Yeah, well, he was ashamed of it. You see, the Himba are pretty directly racist against the desert people. The Kush are pretty directly racist against the Himba, and there's complexity to all of that. None of them are 100% right about any of their neighbors. And if any of them had learned more about each other, there would be less conflict.
Yep.
But at the same time, the desert people are very rightly like, yeah, you guys all kind of suck at this, and we're just going to do our own thing with our super alien internet, and good luck, have fun with all your nonsense.
Well, I think it was the rare depiction of a technology like basically a internet, right? Or at least instant messaging, right? That wasn't like computer bad, AI robot destroy sci-fi, right? It was like, actually the internet people are a lot better off in some ways, and it's kind of cool and awesome that they have internet. Internet's great, right?
But also I was
technological representation.
I very much enjoyed the way her connecting to space Twitter internet felt, because imagine someone, a human, an intelligent human being from, I don't know, Roman times, and just stick them in front of a computer with translated internet and just bombard them with it. Like
Latin, Latin Google.
Like Twitter and FARC and IRC and all the nonsense that we take for granted would be confusing and terrifying to someone who didn't really understand the scope of what the internet was capable of. And that is portrayed very well, I think. But, like the Himba, like, oh, they're crazy. They wave their arms all the time. You meet them and it's like, oh, yeah, because they're literally constantly typing.
Yep.
Let's see. The spaceship stuff was interesting because I suspected.
Well, that's my favorite deal.
Oh, yeah. That had something very, very similar happens in the third of the 9 Fox Gambit books. Like, almost identical.
I mean, any sci-fi book where the spaceships have names, which I don't know if the Culture was the first one to do that.
Definitely not, but the Culture is the one everyone remembers.
There's a difference between ships having names like Star Trek, where it's like, it's a navy and they have a designation, versus the ship being a character with a name and some sort of, intelligence to it, right? Like Kit in Knight Rider, right, is basically it's a character. It's not a place or vehicle, right, or weapon. It's actually a character. So yeah, the shrimpy, the fact that they're shrimpy also is nice.
But I like that they make a point that every one of these cultures, regardless of their differences, even regardless of the negative and problematic aspects of some of their cultures, every one of them learns something about the other cultures that they would not have learned on their own. Like even the desert people learn about the trees and their deal from the Himba, who they mutually thought were primitive. Because there's something. It's one of those ideas of, as societies evolve, you take all the good parts from your past and you try to merge them together, and you collectively try to shed the bad parts. Maybe you disagree on what's bad, and that's kind of how societies evolve over time. Like the sexism of the Himba, probably just objectively bad. But
I mean, that's trying to allude to the message that we're hearing often in the real world, which is that like a lot of I guess on Earth, right, the highly advanced so-called developed or whatever you want to call them, the golf playing nations, I think is the best term, right? The colonizer places that are have high technologies and internets and whatever, right, actually do have something to learn from the places and cultures that they view as lesser or primitive. It's like, it's like there's knowledge there, right? Not all of it is true, right? But there are, like their agricultural practices and other sorts of things that have been well known, right, amongst other peoples for centuries, millennia, how long, that are ignored or discounted or whatever, because those are viewed as primitive societies or lesser than, and that their knowledge isn't worthwhile because you have the most advanced knowledge. Therefore, what do you have to learn from anyone else, right? And the book tries to teach you that lesson. That is a true lesson to learn. So.
Yep. And if you zoom all the way out, the moral could be everyone would be better off if they got to go to college and also got to study abroad, because they would bring something new back home to where they came from, and everybody is better for it.
I don't know if everyone needs to go there, but it's good if enough people go
some
there,
people
right?
from every culture in every place.
And that when those people come back, right, they are, respected and listened to.
Yep. Because Binti is not respected and listened to when she comes back. Not initially.
That's something I think me and I think many people can identify with, would be families sending you off to college to get educated, and then you come back and you tell them things and they don't listen to what you learned, right?
They're like, oh no, university ruined my child. Like, no.
You literally told me my whole life that it was important to be educated and learn things. You emphasized education so much, and now I've learned so much. I've learned more than you learned, and you won't listen to me? It's like, yes, I do still have things to learn from you, right? I'm not going to discount you like some colonizer might discount, the culture that they've colonized, but it's like there are things that I've learned that I know are true, and you're arguing with me even though you really, really wanted me to go learn those things and paid a lot of money for me to learn them and got mad when I didn't learn them well enough, and now I'm telling you the thing I learned and you're disagreeing with me.
Right.
It's like, You thought the education was so important. Why aren't you respecting the education that you thought was important?
So one thing I like is we don't really get a sense of when any of this is set, or even specifically where.
The year XDXDX.
Until
Yeah.
when Binti is on the space internet and she basically starts reading the space Wikipedia, and she finds out like it was basically smartphone era in like Namibia or like somewhere in that region where the golden aliens came down, and the people there just used their technology and also were like, you know what?
Oh, I forgot about that, but that was like the best part.
That was one of my favorite scenes in the entire book.
The desert. That's because that's another trope, right? Is like the visiting, super aliens, the precursors, the even better, the aliens that are better than all the other aliens. Like the in 2001, right? The monolith guys, right? It's like there's always one alien species that's not just another alien species. It's like the precursor godlike species.
Even Star Trek has that, and like they meet them at one point.
Oh,
they meet like
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's an episode of Star Trek where like most of the major races, like the Klingons and the Cardassians and the Romulans and the humans, they end up on a planet where they meet the data archive of the precursor civilization that claims it made all of them. And the moral of that one is, other than the humans, pretty much everyone is like, fuck you, there's no way that's true, we refuse to believe it, and it's never spoken of again.
Okay.
It's really stupid.
That's a common trope in sci-fi, the great precursor species, right? And the desert people, right? Their history, was that, yes, these golden aliens, right? These precursor great species of amazingness visited them long ago and bestowed upon them this technology and befriended them, just like the old conspiracy theories about aliens in Egypt or whatever, right? But it was true, at least within this fictional world.
And they were all just chill.
And then disappeared, right? They never saw them again because that's the trope, right? But then she goes to back to the university at the end, and there's just people from that species chilling, and they're like, "Oh yeah, hey, how are those desert people doing?"
Yeah,
we should go. It's like they're not some magical precursor species; they're just another alien race, just like all the rest that just happened to go on vacation there for a while.
Yep.
Right.
And I love we just wanted a referral to the university.
Right. It's like that's all, just turning that trope on its head was just like so fun, even though it was a small part of the overall story. It was really satisfying.
So there was a minor bit that comes up near the end, but it's brought up, it's alluded to several times along the way, mostly with Binti and the red clay that she puts on her body. And like there's a lot of
that's throughout the whole book.
Yep.
Yeah,
but at the end, it culminates when she's with the desert guy, and she's like, it's taboo for anyone, even like a husband, to see me without this on. And I'm ashamed. And he's like, but that's your culture. I don't have that culture. So I just see it as an adornment. It shouldn't be taboo to you because I come from a different place. And then he's like, so this hair, nobody's allowed to touch. This is the special hair to my people. But you're not part of my culture. Go ahead and touch my hair. And that whole scene was a really interesting meta depiction of like what taboo means in society. And it was a good way to talk about the kinds of conflicts that happen in the real world today around things like drawing a picture of the Prophet Muhammad. And I thought that was I think if nothing else, that section of the book is the kind of thing that if I were a teacher in an English class and I was our social studies class and I made them read this book, we would do a little unit on like that part of the book.
But yeah, what's the word for the clay? I can't remember.
Otize, something like that.
But yeah, so I think that's maybe one of the most important things in the whole book, and I can't believe we didn't mention it.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, I love the growth of like she makes it at home, and then she's on an alien planet and she misses it, but then she like makes it on the alien planet, and it's not the same, but it's still part of that lineage and tradition, and we just see that sort of evolve.
Yeah, it's I guess it's the same as say like I don't know. I'm trying to think of an actual Earth culture equivalent, right? Because I don't know of any people that like cover themselves in mud every day.
Well, it's interesting because she finds it as a comfort because it ties her to her culture and her people, but also she starts to see that it is definitely used to some degree in a sexist way by her own culture. and she starts to have a nuanced understanding of it. And I like how she still wears it and still respects it, but she has a broader understanding of its true meaning and where it comes from. And it's a choice as opposed to something that is afflicted upon her by her culture.
I guess it could be a parallel to be like, the Muslim women wear a hijab on purpose.
Yep.
Right? As opposed to someone making them wear it because...
Yep. Or someone forcing them to take it off. Neither of those options is a good option.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, it's also, right, not only does it serve to bring that message, right, but it also is sort of like a mental health thing, right? It's like whenever she's like, like when she doesn't have enough of it, she's she's like feeling insecure, right? And like, and it's like, she can, when she's, feeling nervous or whatever, she can like smell some or, get some extra and it makes her feel better, right? Sort of like a security blanket kind of deal, right?
That's a fun aside. She clearly, like from what happened on the ship, she is suffering from anxiety and PTSD and having panic attacks. And I like how her cell phone is just like, she gets therapy and her cell phone has an app that is like, listen, you're having a panic attack. Take deep breaths. Like, it's fine.
But how the mud that she rubs on herself is serving like these multiple purposes throughout the story, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a healing salve for Oku and
Yeah.
And like there's not that much more I could really say unless we start going like plot point by plot point or character by character. Let's see who stood out. The grandma in the desert is like, I think, my favorite character because she is very much
what you would expect from an awesome desert grandma.
She's very just matter of fact, like, oh, honey, don't look at that much Twitter that quickly. You gotta ease into it. Come on. But also like, oh yeah, my piece of shit son decided he was gonna throw this away. He barely talks to me, and then she's like, barely, meaning he does talk to you? What the fuck? Dad never told me.
Yep.
Dad had access to the space internet this whole time.
I have to go with, the spaceship again, right?
Yeah.
At the end, it's a very Super Metroid situation.
Yep,
right?
the little baby.
The baby ship comes to the rescue at the end, right?
But the baby ship is so cute.
You can't even see it. It's a book, but you're like.
But the way it talks, and it's just like, oh yeah, mom sent me. Didn't quite explain everything.
It befriends. It basically, combines with her, right? The way that Samus and the baby Metroid have a symbiosis of kind, right?
But I like along those lines how.
And then she goes to Space University, and they're like, "Oh, you're tied up with one of those spaceships." Yeah, so some of the other students are also. Like,
but that's when they test like how far away should I be able to get from it? Like, there is definitely an undercurrent of curiosity is a worthwhile pursuit among all sentient beings because anytime something weird happens, Binti and whoever she's with, they experiment and try to figure out what to do. Like, they don't just take things for granted, which I think is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely read that. Like, I hope you read this book and didn't just listen to this. But I very much thought this book was great. I think Nnedi's works continue to be amazing. And
good choice.
Yeah. So, do you want to announce or do you want to present the choice? We haven't figured out exactly, like, when you present the choice, should I have to pick right now?
Oh, I don't care about that.
I'm just thinking about the rules. We haven't set the rules for how the book club's going to go.
So here's the story. I have a, wish list of books I have, right? Books I want to buy. I haven't read yet. I went to that list and I said, well, I guess I'll just pick 2 books on the list. That way, no matter which one Rim picks, it's a book I want to read. Really simple. Can't go wrong with that, right? Just pick 2 books from the list, whatever. So I go to the list and I go down the whole list and I noticed like the 2 books on the list had the same author. And I was like, I never heard of this author.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. I've never heard their name before. I don't know who they are. I don't know anything about them. I've never read any of their books, but somehow 2 of their books got onto my book wish list at completely separate points in time, right?
It's not Umberto Eco, is it?
No. And it seems like they've only written 2 novels, but they've written many other things.
It's not Salman Rushdie, is it?
No.
Okay.
They've only written 2 novels, right? So the author, I don't know if Rim even knows this person because I didn't until recently. The author is G. Willow Wilson. Do you know this person?
I don't think so.
So G. Willow Wilson is a person who has mostly written comic books, right? And I think is most known for creating the Ms. Marvel character.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Okay, I
Kamala Khan, right?
yeah.
So this is the person who invented the character of Kamala Khan, has written lots of popular recent-ish comic books, is exactly the same age as us, right? She was born in 1982. Right? She's wrote some X-Men. What is it? Wikipedia says she first encountered comics when she read an anti-smoking pamphlet featuring the X-Men in 5th grade. She started watching X-Men every Saturday, right?
Oh my God. So we come from the same comics lineage.
Right, exactly. So this person has written 2 books, novels, right? One book is Alif the Unseen, and the other book is The Bird King. The Bird King, I think, is the newer one that like came out pretty recently, and the Alif the Unseen is the one that they wrote some years ago. Right? And I'm like, well, this person is clearly some excellent writer who is one of us old millennials.
Oh fuck! So I just skimmed a really high level like summary of both of those books, and they are equally compelling.
Right. So I'm probably going to read both of the books. So I don't care which one you pick for us to discuss. I can't lose.
Ooh, it's really tough. Which of these 2?
Yeah.
You know what?
I don't care if you pick now or later. It's up to you.
I'm gonna set a precedent of being willing to pick right now, having just seen the choices, and I'm gonna choose Alif the Unseen. Solely because
the one I bought already.
Solely because of the word cyberpunk, and cyberpunk has been very front of mind lately, and I'm very interested in, quote, in the novel, a Middle Eastern hacker named Alif discovers a book of gene tales which may lead to a new age of quantum computing. Just put that straight into my veins.
All right, well, here it comes, right into your veins. And look at this. If it wasn't for book club, Rim wouldn't even know about this book or this person. And I don't know how these 2 books got onto my wish list without me knowing who this was before I went to choose the books. So, and if, I can predict the future, it doesn't really matter which one Rim picked because I pretty much can guarantee once he finishes the Alif the Unseen, he's going to read The Bird King. Like,
I mean, you know me. You know how I do with books.
That's how we do.
I mean, let's read one Wheel of Time book 14 books later.
I mean, I haven't started reading either one, either, but I can probably say that's the same is going to happen, right? It's like,
yeah.
What could these be?
All right.